Hello everyone. So today we are going to be learning about this new chapter, The Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen. So this story is a very short story and it is written in very simple English. I will tell you the gist of it and some themes that are highlighted in the story and how the author has used various symbols to show us the hardships of a small girl. So this story is about one small girl whom the author has referred to here as the little match girl who is out on the streets on New Year's Eve on a cold evening to sell matchsticks so she can earn money. And her father has sent her out to earn money. And I will tell you the gist in when I'm explaining the story. So at the end of the story, the girl dies due to hunger and cold. So this is a very sad story, and I will now start with the story. So this story takes place in the New Year's Eve. The evening is very cold, and a little girl is out on the streets. She is trying to sell matchsticks. She doesn't have enough warm clothes, and she is also barefoot. The slippers that she had been wearing were her mother's, and naturally they were big for her, and she had lost them. So now she was barefoot, and she was also hungry and she was shivering with cold. But she knew that she could not return to her father empty handed without selling any matchstick, because going empty handed meant that she would receive beating from her father. So she was asking people to buy her matchstick, but nobody was buying them. In the end, when she was feeling too cold, she huddled against a wall and she struck one match to keep herself warm. In that one, in the light of that one matchstick, the the warmth that she received, it felt to her that she was sitting in front of an iron stove and she was getting heat from an iron stove. She felt like that. When the matchstick got extinguished, the warmth also ended, and she then struck a second matchstick. And when she struck the second matchstick, it was as if the walls that were in front of her they became transparent, and she could see right through the walls. And through the walls, she saw a roasted goose stuffed with apples and stuffed with apples and dried plums. The goose then came to life. It hopped down from the table and it came up to her. This time also, the matchstick got extinguished and this vision of hers ended. Then, in the third vision, so the third vision happens when she uh, lights another matchstick. This time, she sees a very large Christmas tree that is lit with thousands of lights on its green branches. But as soon as she stretches her hand forwards to touch that Christmas tree, the light from the matchstick extinguishes. The vision ends. So this symbolizes or this shows that whatever the little girl was seeing, it was not real, because if it was real, she could have stretched out her hand and she could have touched the Christmas tree. But before she could touch the Christmas tree, the light got extinguished and the Christmas tree also disappeared. Then she saw that the light from the Christmas tree, they went higher and higher and they found the stars. The little girl saw a star fall from the sky and thought that someone must have died. So this was something that her grandmother had told her, that whenever a star falls from the sky, a soul goes up to God. So naturally, when she saw a star fall, she remembered her grandmother's words and thought that someone must have died. She drew another matchstick and lit it, and this time she saw her loving grandmother. And this time she knew that when the matchstick would get extinguished, like all her previous visions, her grandmother would also disappear. But her grandmother was the only person who loved her, and she also loved her grandmother. So she did not want to be left alone in this cold evening. So she pleaded her grandmother that take me with you wherever you go. I want to go with you. I don't want to be alone. So she requested her grandmother to take her with her. So to keep her grandmother, she struck a whole bunch of matchsticks so that the light would not disappear and that she could keep her grandmother with her. Soon, all the light from the matchsticks they got extinguished, and both of them flew in brightness, and both of them went to be in heaven. The following morning, the little girl's dead body was found with the burnt out matches clutched between her fingers. So, the next morning, the little girl was found dead, and in her hand there was a bunch of matchsticks. So, her final vision came true, and her request was fulfilled, that she wanted to be with her grandmother, so she died, and both of them went to heaven. In the third, after the third vision, when the little girl says that a shoot a star falls and a soul ascends to God, it can be assumed that the soul that would have ascended to God was that of the little match. So it is an assumption that the soul that ascended to God was that of the little match girl, because in the end she dies. Now I will justify the title and the themes that are shown in the story. First, the title, the little match girl, is a quite appropriate title because in the whole story we see the struggles of a little match girl who sells matches. The author has not given any name to the girl, and she is just referred to as the little match girl because by not giving a name, the author has shown that this little girl is not one, but there are also many, many more little match girls who are out there on the streets trying to sell matches, trying to survive in the Victorian era. These children, they belong to the lower rung of the society, and they had to face many hardships because of poverty. And she was subjected to beating and abuse at home. The little match girl's father used to beat her whenever she used to return empty handed. In this story, the little girl goes out in New Year's Eve on a cold evening to sell matches. The girl did not have enough warm clothes and shoes to protect herself from the cold. She had to walk bare feet through the snow and could not sell the matches as nobody bothered to look at her and buy the matches. Also, she was afraid to go home empty handed because, like I said, if she went empty handed, she would be beaten by her father. She huddled herself against a wall and tried to keep herself warm by lighting the matches, but it was of no use. In the end, she died of cold, hunger, and abuse. Her frozen dead body was found the next morning. People who did not care to look at her miserable condition the previous night, they came to show sympathy in the morning. Through this description, the author has brought home the cruel and apathetic attitude of the wealthy towards the poor. The word match in the title refers to the act of selling matches by the little girl to earn money, but it has more than its literal meaning. The light from the match, it is a symbol of warmth and hope. The little girl lights up matches to keep herself warm. It also reminds her of the love and warmth she used to get from her old grandmother. The light and the warmth from the matches gave her hope to live and survive the cold and hunger in this world. If not here in the world, which is reflected in her imaginary visions. So, the light from the matches gives her hope every time to survive, to live on in the harsh cold and in the hunger. Because every time she lights a match, she sees something that she dreams for, she longs for. The iron stove, the delicious feast, that is the roast goose, a Christmas tree that she can never have, but she can only see through the windows of various shops. And in the end, she sees her grandmother who has died, and the only person who loved her, and she loved her back. The two important themes that are reflected in the story, one of them is class differentiation, and the second is faith and hope. So, this story shows a realistic and a very crude view of the society in Victorian era. The story takes place in Victorian era, and it also deals with the theme of class differentiation. During this time, that is the Victorian era, the middle class people emerged and they took over an important percentage of workplaces. At this time, there appeared an underclass which remained unemployed and lived in abject poverty. There existed a huge gap between the financial condition of this class and the wealthy. And it is this class differentiation which the author has reflected through the character of the little girl. The depiction of the girl's clothes and her house, with only the roof through which the wind whistled, and large cracks stuffed with straw and rags, indicate that she belonged to the underclass of the society. It was because of their financial condition that that the little girl was sent on this cold night on New Year's Eve to sell matches. Although not although not shown directly, but it can be inferred that the father of the little match girl, he was also jobless, and he used his daughter as a means of income. And whenever she returned with empty hands, she would be beaten. In the Victorian era, the children were regarded as miniature adults. They were used as cheap labor, and sometimes these children, they were made to sell matches as a front for their actual begging. So, child abuse was common during that period. The little girl in the story, she was not only cold but also hungry, and she was abused at home by her father. Class differentiation is showed very vividly when the little girl has visions of a warm stove, a sumptuous feast, a twinkling Christmas tree, and her late grandmother's loving face. The first three visions clearly show the gap between the rich and the poor and the things which the little girl could only dream of. The fourth vision reflects her desire of being loved and cared for. It is symbolic of the apathetic attitude of the rich towards the poor. The wealthy were least bothered about the suffering of their poor brethren. They ate, they drank, they made merry, without caring for people like the little match girl in the story, who died of cold and starvation. In the second theme, we come across faith and hope. Hope is an expectation of positive outcome related to some circumstances in one's life. In other words, hope is wishing for something good to happen in life. Faith is trust in God that we shall receive the things which we wish for. In the story, The Little Match Girl, the girl had the hope that she would pull through the difficulties, and therefore she continued to keep herself warm by lighting the matches. She had faith in God that He would help her. When she lit a match and she saw her grandmother, she did not want to lose her and therefore lit the whole bundle of matches. She pleaded with her grandmother to take her to heaven with her, where there would be neither cold nor hunger, nor there would be any abuse. A small, poor girl suffering from cold, hunger, and apathy of the people around her was capable of imagining certain things, which we see in the visions that she experiences whenever she lights a match. So these things, they are the things that she must have longed for, and they made her feel better. An iron stove, a huge Christmas tree, a table laden with delicious food. The girl imagines her deceased grandmother's face just because she had faith and hope. Next, we have various symbols that the author has used to describe the hardships of the little girl. First is that of the iron stove. The little girl, she feels as if she is sitting in front of the heat of a stove. And this stove, this heat from the stove, this warmth, it is symbolic of the feelings of the warmth and safety which she longed for. And it reminded her of the love and affection that she got from her grandmother. The Christmas tree that the little girl saw in her vision was huge, brightly lit, and beautifully decorated, the sort that would be found in a wealthy home. This evergreen Christmas tree is a sign of undying life, rebirth, and the stamina that is needed to endure the winter months. The little girl in the story tried to survive in the extreme cold winter night by lighting the matches. Falling star. So, the falling star is symbolic of the girl's soul ascending into heaven. The grandmother had told the little girl that whenever a star falls, his soul ascends to God. And in the story, we see that by the end of the story in the morning, the little girl she has perished in the snow. Sorry, in the cold due to hunger and cold. So it can be assumed that the star that falls and the soul that ascends to God is that of the little girls. Matches have a very important role in the story. The little girl is out on the street for selling matches to earn money on the bitterly cold evening of New Year's Eve. It is by lighting the matches that the little girl tries to keep herself warm, and it is in the light of the matches that she sees the visions of an iron stove, a sumptuous feast, a twinkling Christmas tree, and her late grandmother. Thus, the matches in the story, they are symbolic of warmth from cold and the warmth of love, which the little girl was longing for. They are also symbolic of the light of God and hope. Cold is symbol of hardship, desperation, and hopelessness. The little girl in the story was out on the street on a terribly cold winter night. She did not have enough warm clothes and shoes to protect herself from the cold. Her hands and feet, they became numb with cold, and ultimately she was frozen to death because of being exposed to the cold.